Hello and welcome back to the channel. Connor and Corey here from Off Script. So we are doing another movie review and or discussion for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
I applaud you, sir, for saying Shang-Chi. That means you've seen the movie. Everybody else that I know that has talked to me says, hey, have you seen Shang-Chi yet? I go, oh, you're such a noob. You haven't seen it yet.
Very excited to talk about this one. As we said in our last Marvel video discussion when we were talking about Black Widow, we had a pretty good grade for it, honestly, A-. It was just a product of, losing that hype and steam that it had coming off of Endgame. I think that hurt it. Shang-Chi is different, though, because it's a standalone thing. It's the first new solo character movie that we've gotten since the Infinity Saga ended. That being said, I think I will start off by saying this. This is probably in my top 5 Marvel movies now.
I put it, top 5, top 3 solo for sure.
If you do solo movies, it could go up even a little higher, I think. It was just fantastically done, I think, and we'll get into the details of what we think why that is here shortly. But before we do that, as always, we have to ask you guys to show pity on us and please subscribe. Leave your likes on the video, comments down below. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our uploads. Definitely tell us what you think about this one. There probably will be some spoilers ahead. I should say that now. I don't think we're going to try to give away too much because it's still pretty early after the movies come out. So spoiler alert just in case. If you want to watch the movie and then come back and watch this. But we'll try to keep the main plot points or twists and stuff out.
Well, I got to say, the one thing I think that makes this movie such a good standout movie is the fight scenes, man. They're so good. They're so well choreographed. Probably second to the best, if not the best, fight scene since Winter Soldier. I appreciate no fast cuts when it comes to fight scenes. I appreciate well choreographed fight scenes where you see every bit of action and you can appreciate that they actually put time into rehearsing and doing them and just making it so authentic to the culture.
I agree completely. The fight scenes in this were fantastic, not only in the way they were choreographed, but just the style too. More of a kung fu style of fighting. And I think another thing that I will say that is probably a good reason why this movie, the fight scenes turned out so well, is because the choreography was done by Brad Allen. I don't know if you saw at the end of the credits, they saw in memory of him. So he actually passed away after the movie was done filming, but he was choreographer under Jackie Chan. That you could tell it was very inspired by Jackie Chan sort of movements, especially on the bus scene. Which is, by the way, bus scene, chef's kiss, because that was like the most beautiful, fantastic introduction to a character. That little move where the jacket gets taken off and he whips it back on in the middle of a fight was Jackie Chan all the way. He didn't do that comical Jackie Chan sort of look on his face, but that move, I said out loud when he did that move, I was like, that was fucking dope.
Yeah, so cool. And even because I'm glad you brought that up too, because him doing that and using the environment to fight, that's all Jackie Chan. And then even in the middle of a fight, there's a part in that entire fight where he falls down into the chair and then does a little wave to that girl and then gets right back up and goes again. Yeah. That is absolutely Jackie Chan. That's exactly what he did. He used the environment. It would be comical to a viewer, him just waving like it was there, but it's not really a comical act, but he would do just everyday things right there, too. And it just, all of that tied so perfectly together. And the fight scene on the bus was definitely the most memorable. There's not enough I can say about this movie. I think it's fantastic. If you haven't seen it yet, you got to absolutely go see it. I think the one thing, I'll just go ahead and right off the bat, I graded this movie when we came out of it, at an A, and I told Anna I didn't go any higher because it's so hard to give these Marvel movies A+s for me. It's so hard because the movies I put into A+ routes are just, they're very tough to put them there. One thing for me, and this may be spoiler-ish, is with the fight scenes, like with the bus and with everything that's in that kind of tower kind of club that's happening, that the fight club that's happening up there.
Yeah, the scaffolding, that was really good.
Yeah, too. All those fight scenes are cool. Then when you get to the third and last act of the movie, it becomes less of that and more Avengers style battle.
Yeah.
And that shift pulled me a little bit away, but nothing that drastically hurts the movie, because I just got so hooked on that fight style in the beginning where I'm like, oh cool, I'm cool with very grounded fight scenes. I'm telling you, it goes straight go straight Avengers style at the very end. You're like, holy shit, how did we get here? Weren't we just on a bus? fighting a bunch of dudes, and then we're that I won't say what's happening at the end exactly, but it's just crazy to think where you were in the beginning of it towards the end. It's nuts.
I think it's maintained, that same style and feel is maintained through at least one part of the climax of the movie, where it's the fight with the main antagonist, his father. That still maintains that
was
very
fine.
martial arts kung fu fight sort of thing, even with the shenanigans with all the rings and the power that his dad has at the time. I think the moves and stuff that they do are still very good looking. Then after that, where it kind of is just like, okay, what's happening now? Like, it just all of a sudden goes from like martial arts kung fu movie to, yeah, like you said, big Avengers level. Even though it gets kind of away from where it started at the beginning, it didn't go out of its lane too far. It stayed like
No.
it knew what its strengths were, and it stayed that way the entire time. I will say, in addition to the fight scenes, the music was really good for this.
I was just about to say too. It was incredible. It's because that's what your point is, like the bus scene and everything. They mixed in kind of like that kind of hip hop music because it worked really well in Black Panther. It still fits the era because it's where he's at by the start of the movie. He's in the States, and they kind of explain where and why he got there. So it makes sense to kind of blend that, because by the end of the movie, we aren't really getting that hip-hop style of music at all. What we're getting is that Marvel, it still feels very Marvel. The music is composed very well like Marvel, but like you said, very monastery kind of vibe to it as well, which was done beautifully. And unless you're paying attention to it, maybe you don't catch it, but I'd say when you watch the movie, pay attention to the music, because that stuff just sets the tone. Because that's another thing is, for me, I love a movie where the theme also, or the setting and the places that they're at also is just as much of a character as any other characters there. And I really felt like the places they were at, I could still picture pretty much piece by piece the layout of the place, because they took enough time to not only show it to you, but actually continue using it in an environment where they show the whole landscape rather than just cut away a little bit of pieces and it doesn't feel like you're actually there. It just showed you a backdrop and then continued with it. This really felt like every place that they showed, they were physically there, which for the most part they were in these beautiful places with a little bit of green screen behind to make up some of the atmosphere, but it really felt like this one was cared about in terms of how it looked and how it sounded on the screen. And that's what I loved about this one.
If this entire movie took place in San Francisco, or like you know what I mean, like,
yeah.
If it just took place somewhere in the West instead of like going back to its roots where the story started, then this would have felt like a slap in the face, I feel like. But
For sure.
I feel like they were only in San Francisco for like maybe 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
not even maybe.
First little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and then they immediately just launch into the adventure right after the bus scene, and I think that's just one of the most fantastic ways to start not only a superhero or Marvel movie, like to get right into the action, but an origin story. That's a problem that origin stories have a lot too, is there's that slow build up. They launch into, he's an adult, and 10 minutes later he's having that fight on the bus, and then they're just in it. And then he explains in backstory to Aquafina, his friend Katie, yeah, this is what I grew up and I'm very well trained and all this kind of stuff. You don't really know me, sort of thing. I'm glad that they didn't make it a whole like friendship breaking up thing the whole movie. She was very understanding, like, as soon as he told her, and I feel like that's the way most friendships would be. Instead of doing this CW DC show bullshit where it's just an entire season, the whole arc is
just being upset.
The hero and his significant other fighting because the hero didn't tell the significant other about something dark that happens in his hero work. And then the other one just being pissed at him the entire season. So I applaud that as well. I think their friendship was really natural looking and done really well, and the fact that they stayed friends the entire time and didn't have a huge fight or blowout from this was awesome as well.
And not only that, but they didn't force a love relationship or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic, because they could have easily done that. They gave little hints, whenever he was like in that Fight Club thing, he has his shirt off, and she's like, "Oh," but like at that point, I was like, I looked over and I was like, "Please, they're best friends. Please don't tell me that." She's just like looked at him with his shirt off, like she's never seen him with his shirt off. Apparently, she looks at him and she's like, "Okay, now I'm in love. I want to go have him." And I'm like, "Please don't have that." And they didn't, and it worked out. That worked really well. I think that's straight line perfect. Just keep them as friends. Also, what I also appreciate about this movie, now that I'm starting to think about it a little bit more, is this movie is patient, right? You're not given answers, and even by the second act, you're like, oh, I'm probably gonna get answers here. I'm probably gonna, this is where I'm. You don't get answers still, and that may annoy some, but you have to be patient with this movie because this movie trusts you to be patient and wants you to wait it out, because by the end, the questions will be answered. It's gonna take some time, like little bits and pieces, like why was he here the whole time? Why was he in the States? Why this? Why this? What about his mom? What about his dad? Why is all this happening? And by the very end of the movie, you get things figured out. They don't just give you stuff in the middle, which is good because it leaves you something to cling to on top of everything that's going down. It's not a very complicated story, but it does leave you that little bit to cling to, and I like that too.
Let's actually talk about the characters too, because the way that the characters were done, like the characters were all very likable, and I think that's why you're able to kind of get strung along, like wanting to find out a little bit more about how did this end up happening or where is this going, because the characters were so likable. So you were immediately invested in them. Aquafina, I usually find her comedic roles, I usually find her character kind of annoying because she really exaggerates. This movie, though, I absolutely loved her. I thought her jokes that she did and her situational humor was very on point and subtle. She didn't try to force really much of anything. It just felt like she was joking around with Shang-Chi and us, like we were all in a friend group, and she was just kind of making these jokes like me and you would to each other. So I think that was really well done. I think she was a great character. She got some good development towards the end of the movie, and not in a forced way either. It was not forced down our throat that you're supposed to expect her to do something or believe that she can do something.
Yeah.
She just did it, and that was it. I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. I agree with that.
Yep. And it wasn't for any kind of thing at all. Like, because there's big kind of push for her in here, right? There's like towards the end, she has like a big of like coming true to herself kind of thing, and it's more or less because of how she's felt with her family. And it's just like, yeah, I need to take some action in myself. I'm kind of like I'm just doing the same dead end beat job, and that's just my personality. That personality transpires through her, and so towards the end, it's good to see that kind of thing. There's no movement for her to be like some superhero or anything like that. It's just a movement for her to be a better person to herself. And I like that, and I think that worked really well.
Yeah, realizing your true potential, I think, is the point that her family was trying to make. They're not forcing her into one specific thing. They're just saying you can do better for yourself. You can fulfill your life a lot better, and you have the potential. And a lot of times I think people are more scared of what they can do than what they can't. She's like, well, I could go do all this amazing stuff with my life, but why? Because I'm having fun doing this the way it is. And yeah, so she gets really good character development, and not in a forced way at all.
Right.
I think Shang-Chi is a perfect protagonist. I didn't really have anything with. I didn't have any problems with him in terms of his character development. He was very stoic and sure of himself from the very beginning. He kind of needed a little guidance towards the end, as in terms of like which path he wanted to take, because he was kind of stuck on, am I who I think I am, or am I what I used to be? And it's really kind of him coming to the realization that you are a combination of everything that has happened to you. You can't just pick one facet of your life and be that. Yourself is like a combination of everything you've experienced and everything that's happened to you. So that was done really well. His father, was fantastic.
The actor was great. I just loved him. I thought he was charismatic. He was
amazing. And another villain who I think is likable. He changed his life and became a better person. And then this tragedy that befalls him gets him back into, it just shows how easy it is to kind of slip back the old ways that you have. But even when he was struggling there at the end with his humanity a little bit, I think it was very relatable and endearing almost. Like, you could understand why he would be going to those lengths to do what he did, because he was just so heartbroken. But then at the same time, he's losing sight of, he still has his family with him. He still has kids and everything. He's just tunnel visioning too much on kind of what he thinks needs to happen. So
right.
I thought he was done really well too. The other main person I guess we should bring up is his sister, who I feel like she didn't really develop much. I feel like
She was kept the same. It felt like
she was also very stoic the whole time. But when we meet her, she's already an accomplished like businesswoman. She's kind of started her own
Crime lord,
empire.
yeah.
Yeah, basically. If you could even really call it that, I would say what she was doing wasn't really all that bad.
Yeah, I don't really know. Now that you brought that up, I don't really know what they were doing. I guess just Fight Club,
Just
like
underground, yeah, just underground fights. Like
that's it.
with, they had like low level people, obviously, and then they have
Yeah.
like the big feature match or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I won't give away too much. You've probably seen it in the trailer, but I don't think there was a character in this movie that I disliked.
Like, I already can't wait for him to be with other Marvel heroes. I'm pretty pumped. I want to see him.
Yeah.
I want to see him interact with Spidey. I want to see him interact with like Doctor Strange and stuff like that. Which seems like that may be down the route they go down. Overall, I think this movie was really, really good. This is a solid A movie for me.
I can just confidently say like this is A plus. Like as far as solo movies go, this is definitely top 5 for sure. I would have to go through it in my head a little bit more to figure out which one where I would actually put it. But it's one of the better ones for sure.
I think I can confidently put it at least at a number 2. If it's not number 1, it's number 2 favorite solo movie. Yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, for the love of God, please go see it. I think it's great. Even like I said, this if you're not big on Marvel movies, if this is your first Marvel movie, which is just nuts to me. If it is, I think this is a good one to check out and look
This
at.
might be a good one to introduce you to Marvel going forward. Like if you started here and then just went through the rest of like Phase 4 to the next Avengers movie, it would just be like us starting out with Iron Man and going all the way to the first Avengers movie. Like, because I didn't read comics growing up, so anytime like those movies were going out, I saw them like a couple years later and then got super into them. I would just look up their comic book origins, read about them a little bit as the new movies came out. I would just look up each new character, and now I've gotten to the point where I have kind of. And I haven't even scratched the surface of what's going on in the comics, but I know enough to be like, oh, I know that, like I've heard that, like this is great. I got to look this up because like this could be like setting up for this, like this major comic book storyline. Like this is a good place to get into it. It's like a standalone Marvel movie almost. Like there are some callbacks and Easter eggs to some other Marvel movies, but not so many that where you would just be lost or it would go over your head completely. I feel like.
You'd follow easy, yeah.
Like if you're a fan of action movies, Marvel movies, like kung fu movies, like if you like just good fight scenes and good action, I think it just hits all the spots. Fantastic movie. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch it. In theaters, be safe. It's not on Disney Plus as far as I know. I don't think they're going to release it on Disney Plus for a while.
Poor Scarlett.
You probably get it early, like before the DVD comes out, or Blu-ray, obviously. But I wouldn't expect to stay home and see this one anytime soon. But it's worth to see in theaters. It's one of those where it's a fantastic theater experience, especially if you go a 1:30 showing on a Saturday afternoon. There's literally no one there. It's pretty great. So, get out there and see it. Let us know in the comments what you guys thought of it. I'll see you later.
There you guys.